Hello and welcome back to the Indian Wisdom Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Raj Balkaran, and you might be looking for some inspired insight from ancient India, maybe a tale or two. um, there has been a lot of very favorable feedback regarding the last couple of episodes surrounding the Valmiki Ramayana, the goings of Rama, and more apropos, the last podcast, the Sitayana, the goings of Sita, the symbolism of Sita, the symbolism of separation, Valmiki birthing verse through his piteous outcry, witnessing the slaughter of a male of a pair of mating conches, Sarah's cranes. There's so much there about the artistic enterprise, about the plight of Sita, perhaps even about patriarchy, about women's roles, about kingship, about what is dharmic or adharmic. And certainly Rama's actions have vexed and perplexed a great many throughout the ages, in addition to, of course, offering inspiration and even modeling of righteous rule. Today, I want to take a closer look at Hanumān, a most fascinating figure indeed, a well-beloved deity, character. Hanumān is, of course, one of the Vanaras, the monkey men, ancient Indian Planet of the Apes. They are, on the one hand, they are a different species of primate, of sort of mythic primate. On the other hand, they are described as leading highly cultivated, civilized, sophisticated lives. And so, in many ways, when Rama encounters the monkey people, the Vanaras in the forest, they are a mirror, a reflection of human society. And so I think that the great poetic genius of Valmiki is using them as a super powerful trope, whereby to both point to the civility and structure and sophistication of humans, but also the extent to which we are all overgrown apes. And there are ways in which Hanumān really behaves like a monkey. And there are ways in which Hanumān behaves not only like a human being, but a highly cultivated, evolved human being. He seems to oscillate between simian and sage. And this is very purposeful because, to my mind, the human experience itself oscillates between, the primate and the quest for perfection, if you will. So much to be said about this beloved character, but what I think I'll do is I'll read a little bit to you from the rendition of a tale about Hanumān from the Stories Behind the Poses. This tale was actually rendered for Crescent Moon Pose. Okay, it talks about Hanumān's mother and his relationship to his mother and his relationship to the feminine principle and feminine power in particular. Now, it is noteworthy before I read to you, and of course, as is typical, I will expand, I will riff as I read. No one knows what will come. Little to no preparation goes into these podcasts. There might be a half an hour or 45 minutes carved out of my schedule, and I've got to record and speak and hope for the best. So I'll riff as I read, but it's noteworthy at the outset that Hanumān is typically without consort. This is extremely important because with so many male deities, we of course have a feminine consort. Lakshmi Narayana Bhyam Namaha. Hail obeisance to Lakshmi and Narayan, right? Vishnu and Lakshmi, for example. Uma Maheshwara Bhyam Namaha, Uma and Maheshwara, right? Shiva and Parvati, in other words. For example, Brahma and Saraswati, Rama and Sita, Krishna and Radha. This is very, very, very common. This interplay, this encapsulation of divine masculine and divine feminine and their interplay. When I say divine masculine, divine feminine, really masculine and feminine as principles, as cosmic principles that we all partake in. And, according to more alchemical Indic schools, tantric thought in particular, these are aspects of self. There are two channels within us all, the Ida and the Pingala, the right solar channel and the left lunar channel. And if you see iconography in any Indic context, really ancient or modern, you will always see the masculine deity on the right and the feminine deity on the left. Now, Hanumān is without consort. Why is that? Well, we talked a little earlier in this podcast series about Durga. Durga, too, is without consort. Why is that? Well, perhaps rather than represent yin and yang, solar, lunar, in that sense, complementary parts to a whole, perhaps these figures represent the totality, the gamut. Is it not the case that Durga, mother of the universe, Amba, Jagadamba, is it not the case that she is martial and masculine? How do we honor the mother in the Indian context? Jaya, Jaya, victory. Well, victory. She's a conquering hero. Yes, heroine figure. She's as martial as she is motherly, and maybe thereby she is as masculine as she is feminine. And of course, these roles are subject to change. Of course, they have much to do with the ways in which we construct and reconstruct and deconstruct societies, without question. But perhaps there is a quintessential masculine and feminine. Perhaps there is an aspect of the human experience that pertains loosely to right brain function versus left brain function, etc., etc. Well, Durga is, to my mind, not yin or yang, but she's yin yang. She is the source. She's the source of both, and with feminine face. And I think one can make the argument that Hanumān, on some level, has great masculine potential and great feminine potential. Is he not wonderfully accepting, accommodating, caring, loving, receptive? In addition to being assertive and immensely powerful. So I want to take a little deep dive to Hanumān's feminine power. Long ago, in the forests of the Himalayan foothills, there dwelt a great race of monkey people. Though they swung through branches and possessed long tails, they also belonged to an advanced ancient culture. They were a great civilization of simian beings hidden in the forest away from the world of men. They were called the Vanaras. Yes. One of their chieftains was named Kesari. Some of you may know Kesari Nandan is one of the great names of Hanumān. And Kesari's wife was called Anjana. Okay, so this the head of this clan of monkeys. Both of them were heads of the clan. Kesari would be away for weeks on end hunting, on hunting expeditions and this and that, supporting neighboring clans, etc. And in his absence, the tribe would turn to Anjana for leadership. She was an extraordinarily powerful woman, monkey woman, you could say. The foundation of her community she was. Whether the task at hand required skill in foraging or great strength to help the clan, whether it pertained to, maybe dealing with the fierce Himalayan storms, etc., whether it pertained to knowledge of childbirth, etc., she could always be depended upon. She also happened to be a great devotee of, you guessed it, Lord Shiva, the great ascetic, the great yogi, the primordial yogi. And Every day she would do worship to Shiva, puja. Okay? She would have a representation, an embodiment of Shiva Murti. In this case, it was a lingam. It was an iconic Murti, sort of this iconic, beautiful sort of iconic stone structure. And since it was established with the presence of Shiva, she would make offerings to it to commune with the divine in the form of Shiva. She would make offerings of fruits and flowers and honey, and she would pour milk over it. Yep. She would offer incense and flame, and of course, most important of all, the active ingredient, she offered her heartfelt prayer, her devotion, her bhakti, cultivating a relationship with the divine in the form of Shiva. Now, think about the relationships you have in your life. Which are the closest? Who are the closest to you? The closest to you are the ones, potentially, with whom you share the deepest love, connection, devotion. So, devotionalism is understood in the Indic context as a means of cultivating, deepening a relationship with the divine. And one of the most beautiful things about bhakti or devotionalism is that it is wonderfully accessible and democratic, if you will, in that one need not possess particular training or be of a certain caste or creed or you name it. One need only possess the power to love. That's all you need. All you need is a heart. Is it not the case that every human being has a heart? Do we know how to use it? How strong is our heart muscle? More in terms of the manomaya kosha, the mental body, the emotional body, spiritual body, and the physical body, but how strong is our power to love? So, she developed a great, profound connection to Shiva. You know, she left. She led quite a fulfilled, life, a full and fulfilled life, clearly. But there was one domain where there was a gap, an absence, a wish, something to be desired, pun intended. And that was the fact that she was without child. And so she decided to pray to Shiva, to commune with, to connect with the energy of Shiva in hopes of earning this boon. For weeks, she had held a vigil worshiping the great Shiva, the great Nilakanta, the great blue-throated Lord. Wonderful story about the churning of the ocean of milk by the demons of gods to procure the elixir of life. But before the elixir emerged, what first emerged was poison. This will definitely be told on the podcast. It's the most rich psychospiritual myth I've come across. It really encapsulates all of the juice of personal transformation and waking up. But the poison had to be dealt with first, and Shiva lodged the poison in his throat. He didn't swallow it because then he would be harmed. He didn't spew it out because then the world would be harmed. By his yogic power, he lodged it in his throat. So Nilakanta, the blue-throated Lord, was one of his names. So she worshipped the blue-throated Lord Shiva, the primordial yogi, day in and day out, in her sacred space, in her home atop the Himalayan peaks. Now Shiva was quite impressed. He was quite taken, pleased by her devotion, her kindness. How do you feel when someone gives you a gift or does something nice for you or goes out of their way for you, a stranger even, much less someone you care about? Yes, how do you feel? What does it do to your relationship when someone offers attention and intention and kindness? Well, Shiva was very much pleased. And when you're pleased, as we all know, whether by a child or a partner, by a friend, by a parent, by a student, when we are pleased, there's a welling up in our heart area. And you can feel it palpably if you have awareness of your subtle body, of your How do you say subtle body? Sukshma sharira, right? If you have awareness of your subtle body, it's not just figurative that people sort of point to the heart for emotionality. You can feel grief very much in your chest. You feel gratitude where? On your tongue? No. However delicious the kulfi or the gulab jamun or the ras malai or the lemon meringue pie, however delicious, to the person who makes it for you, you feel that gratitude not on the tip of your tongue. You may express it on the tip of your tongue, but you feel that gratitude in your heart, very palpably in your heart. And when we have gratitude, it is an experience of a fullness of the heart, and it is as if the vessel is overflowing with that experience. And when we are grateful to someone, instinctively, cross-culturally, transhistorically, this impulse arises in the grateful one. What can I do for you? How can I repay you? Sometimes that may come out of a sense of insecurity or sort of a tit-for-tat cultural conditioned sense. But more often than not, it's coming from just this natural response to reciprocate. This is the very foundation of bhakti, of devotionalism, where we pay attention and intention and make offerings to the divine. We strengthen our connection. And we hope that they are pleased. At times, this is just to have that relationship because it's purificatory and it is uplifting for the aspirant, the sadhaka. And at times, it is because we may have a wish. We may have something that we're looking for help with something. And so Shiva thought to himself, since the selfless Anjana has worshipped me day in and day out, wanting nothing more than to please me, right? For years, she worshipped the Lord with no particular intent, but now she wants a child. He thought to himself, I will definitely grant her a boon now that she worships me with a wish in mind, right? The people who are there for you, even when there's nothing to be gained, they're the ones you're happy to bless when there's something to be gained. The Lord truly wanted to bless Anjana with a son, but not just any son, an incredible, powerful one with a great destiny ahead of him. He would grant her a son of his own. Shiva called upon Vayu, the wind, the power of the wind. See, already you have a very powerful deity in Shiva, and you have this very powerful function, this sort of ecological function. I mean, depending on the climate in which you live, one can really see the power of Vayu. Yes. What's more is a hurricane or tornado, but the power of Vayu in a sense. So he summons the wind god, Vayu. The next time Shiva was with Parvati, he spilled his seed and he allowed his seed to be carried by the wind god Vayu in order to grant Anjana a child. All of a sudden, we have how many parents involved? We'll return to this momentarily. To her utter delight, Anjana conceived. She gave birth to a wise, powerful, noble Vanara named Hanumān. Jaya Hanumān Jnana Guna Sagar. There's a beautiful medieval devotional poem, if you will, a prayer, a stotram, a praise, called the Hanumān Chalisa. It is so incredibly powerful. It is one of the few non-Sanskritic Indic renderings. I mean, there's tons and tons and tons of devotional songs in Tamil and Hindi, etc., etc., etc. But the Hanumān Chalisa is really treated, to my mind, on the level of a Sanskritic hymn or prayer, where it's prescribed or communing with worshiping Hanuman. It's very, very powerful. So Hanuman is born. one of the functions of Sanskrit, well, I guess most languages, is to create epithets, to create patronymics and matronymics. Patronymic is sort of a name that relates to your patriline or your paternity, who your father is. A matronymic, sometimes called metronymic, pertains to your lineage, the lineage of your maternity. You know, your maternal lineage, your mother. So you may be so and so, son of Sarah, or son of John, daughter of George, etc., etc. So one of the most common epithets, which are just descriptions, as it were, of attributes, is the patronymics and matronymics, right? One of Hanuman's great names is Vayuputra, for example, son of the wind. Okay. He had many fathers, right? So he has many patronymics. He's son of Shiva, he's son of Vayu, and he's son of Kesari. Kesari is the man who raised him, right? His mother's husband. But he only has one mother, Anjana. So his favorite epithet of all is Anjaneya. Okay. It's a great Hanumān mantra. Om Namo Bhagavate Anjaneyaya. So Anjaneyaya itself is it's the dative case of, hail to Anjaneya, right? And Anjaneya means son of Anjana. He loved his mother dearly, so he loved to be called the son of Anjana. Yes. Identified with her, he associated with her, and he learned a great deal from her. He was quite a receptive, wise young man. Story will be told, if it hasn't already, about him being so curious about the mysteries of life that he approaches the sun. And actually, maybe I'll tell that story next. So we'll finish the Ramayana cycle from the stories behind the poses. But from a very young age, he was very inquisitive, very receptive, very curious about life, and he really idolized his mother because he really respected her virtues and her values, her devotion, and her strength, her colossal inner strength provided an important exemplar, an example for him to emulate. And in addition to embodying virtues, she also had a great many teachings to offer. It's very interesting. We tell our children a great many things, but they rarely heed the things we tell them. What they actually are impressed by, literally, what we impress upon them, is what we do. The example we set is far more powerful than the instruction we give, for all of our best intentions. But Anjana was not only a lovely example, but she was quite wise, and she had a great deal of teachings, of wisdom, teachings to offer. In one such moment, on one day, she gave Hanuman this really transformative teaching. It's a teaching. Maybe she took a course earlier on in comparative religion, and it's also a teaching that happens to be the Tao Te Ching. But she said, "Look, which is more strong? Which is stronger, my son, water or rock?" Hanuman, of course, chose rock. Who wouldn't? Hello. Then Anjana said, "Look, that's what most people think, my son. Right? Most people they're fooled. They're blinded by the prima facie, by the apparent, by how things seem." And then she proceeded to offer this profound teaching on these two principles, the masculine and the feminine, and the ways in which they are exemplified in the natures of water and rock. So rock is masculine, taught Anjana, and water is feminine. The masculine appears stronger in the outer world, but the feminine strength of the feminine comes from within. Right? A stone axe is strong indeed, but can it penetrate the tiniest of cracks into which water flows so effortlessly, right? Even a boulder can be eroded in time with patience by the power of water. You are great and powerful, without question, my son, but your true power will come from within, right? Often men are ensconced in the outward play of status and stealing power from others, of, of becoming a bit taller by stepping on the toes of others. This is just one power play. There's another more important power play. Rather than steal the powers of others outwardly, derive your own power inwardly and share it. The first is the idiom of disempowerment, taking power from other people. You are better because you have status, you're the boss, you're a certain color, class, creed, religion, etc., and someone else is lesser than. This is the pyramid scheme called human society. And the other mode is the mode of empowerment, where you derive and you acknowledge and you own your power and you facilitate others owning and cultivating power. One is a play of the outer, it seems, the other more so the inner, although they interpenetrate, they cross-pollinate. Right? So Anjana says to Hanuman, your true power comes from within, from devotion, from surrender, from sacrifice, from service to something greater than yourself. Just as water, because it is soft and yielding, has the strength to dissolve even mountains, so too do these attributes, these accommodating attributes, these feminine attributes, if you will, have the power to accomplish anything. Hanuman was truly awed by the wisdom with which his mother gifted him. And indeed, it proved to be most important because he was a powerful warrior. No doubt he had great, colossal martial capacity, all kinds of supernatural physical feats were possible for him. Right? But none could best him, not just physically, but none could best him in terms of his true strength, his inner qualities, his virtues. Yeah, Anjana knew, strongly suspected anyhow, that being the son of Shiva, carried by the wind to her in this sense, that Hanuman would be no ordinary being and he had a great destiny in order to wield such power, great wisdom as needed. And so she taught him everything she knew. And Hanuman did have a great destiny. He became the great devotee of Rama. That's one of his great mantles, not just the warrior or general or chieftain, or his greatness is defined by his ability to surrender to something greater than himself. This is true power. And we're all aware, or somewhat aware, at least, of his very important role in bringing together Rama and Sita, that it was he who flung himself by divine grace across the ocean, piercing the air to land on Lanka, where he found Sita and he united the two. This is an important mythologization of an esoteric spiritual reality. Okay. Hanuman's true strength comes from the inner world, from his connection to the divine. He never marries and remains ever chaste. This is important. He has perfected brahmacharya, chastity. Okay? And in doing so, he's really sublimating his libidinal urges in pursuit of something inner, something otherworldly. Well, one can say, oh, it's certainly not natural to not engage one's libidinal urges. Of course, it's not. But do you want to be natural or do you want to be supernatural? So he's never married. He's ever chaste. He needs no feminine consort. In many ways, he represents feminine power, Shakti. His upright tail represents the raised power, the raised spiritual power that perhaps the Catholics call the Holy Spirit, but in this context, it's called Kundalini Shakti. This Kundalini Shakti is the portion of divine power that is manifestable within the human body. Okay. This is the power that affords him the ability to fly across the ocean, for example, to make himself much larger or smaller at will. This is supernormal power. Okay. Kundalini is feminine. So those who wield it, really what they're wielding is feminine power derived from the inner world. This doesn't come from the outer world. This isn't about stealing someone else's power. This is about cultivating your own power. On one occasion, Rama's beloved brother Lakshmana fell ill, and the only herb that could cure him was atop a faraway mountain. Hanuman flew to the mountain, but being a monkey, he couldn't tell which herb to bring back. So he brings back the entire mountain. So on the one sense, this is a colossal, ferocious feat. This is masculine power. Imagine the bulging biceps implicated in such a feat. But what is he using this for? For the ability to serve, the ability to heal, the ability to nurture. That great mountain was lifted by his devotion to Rama. Okay. He's a shining example of feminine power, right? Now, this tale was told actually in the stories behind the poses for crescent moon pose. And interestingly, this is actually one of the poses that is part of Surya Namaskara. Okay, we will tell the tale where Hanumān studies with the sun and actually develops Surya Namaskara. Perhaps we'll do that next week. But what's crucial about this is the interplay between solar and lunar channels in the subtle body. And in many ways, we could think of yoga, the state of yoga or the pursuit of yoga, as bringing into balance, perfect balance, masculine and feminine. And in many ways, Hanumān represents that perfect balance. So what have you learned? Don't worry, there's no test. This is just for you to reflect on. What stayed with you regarding this podcast? What intrigued you? Where do you see feminine and masculine in society, in your family, in yourself? Where is your work? Where does your work lie? What do you need to develop? How do you see Hanumān differently now than when we began this tale? Right? These are questions worth chewing on. But don't just eat. Eat and enjoy, but digest. Integrate. Listen and listen and listen again. Listen to the words. Listen to what's between the words. Listen to what's behind the words. See if you can apply this ancient wisdom to your embodied experience on the earth. Okay? What does Hanumān have to do with you and your path? What is an example of? To what extent can one emulate him? And why would one even want to? Such questions perhaps are worth considering. I wish you happy digestion. Until next we meet, keep well, take care of yourself, keep listening, and namaste.